controversy, claims that the short text exchange between Chrissy's husband and an unnamed promoter was heartbreaking. "Don't tell anybody about it. Jimmy doesn't need to see this," the husband reportedly said in one. That statement alone, whipped Twitter into a frenzy. The previous evening's email line was almost identical, and now fans were demanding consistency. One tweet went viral. "This isn't fake," he remarked. "This isn't fake," said one tweet that went viral. "The dude is reckless. He leaves the same trail wherever he goes. When you're acting like a novice, how are you attempting to be the king?" The huge surprise, however, came when viewers started drawing parallels between the receipts and previous Love and Hip Hop videos, according to another commenter. A 2017 reunion video in which Chrissy and Jim quarreled over outside distractions was slowed down by one TikTok producer. Fans witnessed a guy the same chain that Chrissy's husband had been seen wearing in earlier photos was seated 2 rows back in the backdrop of the same movie. Throughout the night, the hashtag "he was constantly in style" as individuals froze the image and circled the chain. The internet seemed to have transformed into a single massive crime board that connected pictures, videos, and recordings from over a decade of recording. The hammer that came next was a voicemail leak. Supporters asserted that an unnamed source shared a scary but unsettling voicemail from Chrissy's husband. "She's not going back to Jimmy. I made sure I had nothing on him," according to the message, which was allegedly provided to a friend. But it became darker at this point. The person on the recording laughed and then stated, "Unless he begins pulling old files. After then, things might become chaotic." Immediately, fans burst out, "Older files? Which files? Was Jim present? Really concealing a dirt stash somewhere? Had he been hinting at this since the audio leak first came to light?" Theories spread quickly on blogs. Some claim that the old files included business dealings and street-related data that connected Crazy's spouse nobody wanted the public to be aware of. A few speculate that it had something to do with infidelity, and that her new spouse may not have been the hero she presented him as, but rather a guy with several aliases. The internet was certain that this was more than just a sorrow, nonetheless. Beyond romance, this was about power and reputation. Chrissy, however, remained silent. Not a word, not even a clapback. Never is silence television sector. Instead, it's a strategy. Supporters began. PR staff was making more hours in an effort to predict Jim's next disclosure. Silence also gave her enemies to make up the narrative. In a direct message allegedly from Chrissy's staff was posted account saying she knows Jim's got receipts. All she can hope for is that he won't leave them, endangering everything. The narrative was unchangeable regardless of its veracity. Chrissy had gone into hiding. Jim, on the other hand, was doing the exact opposite. He went live on Instagram for 7 minutes, pacing his living room with his eyes red and his voice raw. But he didn't mention Chrissy's husband in particular. He made several threats in his remarks. "Don't toy with me," he whispered into the camera, "because you know that I have files. Respect is dead now, but I have been withholding it, as you are all aware. If they keep acting when the truth is out, I will tell them how I really feel, as if I were bitter." The comment area came alive right away. Fans spam. "Put the files down. Jim, expose him. We're ready." Then, as if simultaneously, there was another leak. This time it wasn't emails or SMS, it was on film. In a grainy video clearly taken years ago, Chrissy's club table individuals. Jim's speech was clear on the recorded audio. Drinking his drinks and making references that you couldn't see him. Years ago, the guy in the husband who was his inner circle. Fans froze the video and circled him, saying that he had ever appeared as Chrissy's guy. Internet took. Jim has spilled, he said. He's been circling, in the audio that was used to stitch the clip together in one TikTok that went viral. Always in the cut, waiting for me to drop. When compared side by side, it seemed undeniable. Jim had been circling Chrissy's husband for years, so he wasn't only an unknown person. Fans were no longer just gossiping. They were furious. "That's not a new man. That betrayal has been developing for 15 years, read one tweet. Another someone said, "Chrissy wasn't just someone who moved on. She was an internal improvement. It's terrible." Even celebrities couldn't help themselves, Funklex said. "I have never witnessed a dirtiest backdoor play." Following the receipts broadcast on Hot, you can't dispute that homie was plotting, as shown by the statement, "Been in the shadows since day one," Ladies, don't let Cardi B repost a picture of Chrissy's husband that was altered to seem as a shadow behind Jim. Remy Ma, who had tried to be impartial in a live statement, said, "If it means disrespecting the man who fed you, then your plan B becomes your plan A." Even though the society was consuming it, Chrissy's husband was losing the war of public relations until he finally said something. Late that night, Chrissy's husband went live, and the video was clearly recorded with a phone lying on his shoulder. His voice was defensive but shaky. A table. "I don't give a damn about what Jimmy says," he said. "I'm her spouse. That's all. That's all." He was angry because I filled the gap created by he squandered his 15 years. She opted for peace over chaos. And I'm not to blame for that. For a while, supporters thought he had succeeded. He seemed calm, seemed confident, but then the comments became ugly. "Why is Jim saying that his files are free of you?" One person responded, "Peace, don't sweat like that," while another was section. The husband suddenly ended the live broadcast within minutes, cutting off in the midst of a sentence. The spouse looked unstable, and that one error altered the plot again. Of the search reveal his identity, and a few hours later, he revealed another enigmatic tale with the symbols tick, clock, and manila folder. Tuck. Internet went off. As if it were a mixtape leak, fans posted memes on Twitter warning of the upcoming files in large numbers. Insiders said that producers were in a full-blown panic behind the scenes, with some even making jokes about setting alarms and waiting for the next leak. According to one leaked email, VH1 executives debated whether to videotape an urgent sit-down with Jim, Chrissy, and the other executives in order to control the narrative. Others, however, were worried it might backfire. One executive reportedly said, "We lose," along with her husband. Control in the event that Jim enters with receipts captured on video. He no longer abides by TV's regulations. He's thinking about blood. By the conclusion of portion 2, a lot of people online were more curious about when Jim would release his files than if he had any more. One significant question was left unresolved by the culture. If Jim really did possess the dirt, what exactly was in those documents that may have put a stop to Chrissy's as the clock hit midnight? The culture held its breath, wondering whether Jim Jones's enigmatic marriage had ever begun. Hours had passed since the TikTok post was replayed, examined, and disseminated across all platforms, and neither bloggers nor followers were going to sleep. When Jim entered the picture, Twitter was about to label it a bluff, and celebrities were glued to their phones waiting for the data to drop. A shaky 10-second screen clip that was shared on his Instagram has the ability to divide the internet in two. Several images of what looked like bank transactions, unclear contracts, and email communication were featured in the film. The tagline that read, "Heartbreak is not the topic of this." But the game changer was over the top. It has to do with betrayal. I asked my husband why he was meeting with promoters under my identity, and he said, boom. One sentence, along with hashtags like large receipt gate, Jim Files, and Chris's husband shocked the society. Within minutes, it had gained international popularity, and the story had officially transcended the realm of gossip to become a full-fledged cultural scandal. But the chaos didn't stop there. Within an hour, a leak appeared on a gossip site that pushes to news. It was contained bank transactions, he signed contracts carrying the transactions named that allegedly embezzled money via Jim's contacts were fraud rather than just betrayal. The followers were furious. According to he wasn't only surrounding Chrissy, he was also circling he was plotting not just for Chrissy but also for Jim's pockets, which is why Jim referred to him as an understudy, said another. Seeking the crown, and the bloggers went crazy. Headlines screamed, "Do leaked data confirm Jim's claims?" A business scandal revealed that Chrissy's husband, Love, was involved in a fraud plan, and her spouse's name was trending for the first time. Rather than Chrissy's, his whole government name was shouted into thin air on gossip websites and Twitter threads. Jim, meanwhile, was leaking, and he wasn't just being ridiculed online. He was being treated like the antagonist in a Netflix documentary. Like clockwork, he dropped additional parts every few hours. This is a text thread. One of the voicemail samples purportedly had Chrissy's husband texting a promoter, "Keep Jimmy out of this." She must be conscious. Another showed screenshots of him allegedly using Jim's identity to get meetings. The audio clip of Jim's voice cautioning someone in his social circle about snakes too near to home years ago was the most frightening aspect yet. The snake, according to Chrissy's husband, was speaking to fans. Chrissy couldn't keep quiet any longer and eventually spoke out. Late that night, she posted a single Instagram photo. Married to a man, not a rumor. It included a black rectangle with her ring hand uncovered. The comments were nasty, however, and the internet didn't. What if I told you that the turmoil we thought had already reached a record-breaking level suddenly turned into a nuclear war? Yes, Jim Jones just exceeded everyone's expectations. The following weeks of society being shattered by gossip, memes, and released audio. Forget the fights and the pain. He brought receipts this time. Sources claim that the receipts were never meant to be viewed. Since that wedding, the internet has been enamored with Chrissy's spouse. Bombshell is the subject of emails, screenshots, and even films taken behind the scenes. So what do these receipts show? A dark secret with the ability to add anything. People are already calling it the last nail in the coffin via blogs. Twitter detectives are going mad as they make the connections in real time. Jim had no grudges. Jim was warning us, as one widely circulated message said rather clearly. Now that these receipts have been made public, the questions are more urgent than ever. Exposed. In actuality, who is Chrissy's husband? What is he hiding behind his smile in the spotlight? In the dark? And why does Jim feel so strongly that sharing this knowledge may ruin relationships, careers, and perhaps even Chrissy's newfound marriage before the union has even begun? The problem is that the receipts aren't only dragging Chrissy's husband along. By dragging Chrissy herself, they portray a betrayal that seems bigger, colder, and more deliberate than fans could have ever imagined. The internet believed this had to do with affection. Jim's receipts reveal that power is involved. Chrissy and her hubby will never look the same to you again. Manner after learning about its contents. When those receipts showed up on the blogs, everything was different. A horrible audio leak scandal swiftly evolved into a significant cultural disruption. The first screenshots were almost surreal due to their extreme graininess. However, with time, they became into crisper, and Jim Jones wasn't just shouting into a microphone anymore. He had unloaded proof. Additionally, there was more to the evidence than vague hints or bitter resentment. Names, dates, and phone numbers all suggested that Chrissy's new spouse was involved in strange activities. The streets were busy, blogs were frothing, and Twitter investigators were sniffing blood. It all started when a popular gossip website released what they referred to as the anonymous contribution, a string of emails that seemed to be casual exchanges between Chrissy's husband and an Atlanta promoter. They showed up harmless at first. The subtitles below, however, told a worse story. Money transfers, transactions that are not recorded. The internet was sparked by the silence around this, specifically the statement, "Don't let Jimmy find out." Supporters went wild as once they've read that. Was Jim referring to this secret in the audio leak? Was Chrissy's sudden announcement of marriage? What was more painful than this betrayal? Hashtags such as "Darn Jimmy was correct" and "Darn Receiptgate." Within a few hours, it became viral. Fans began capturing pictures of the emails, annotating details, enlarging the dates, and compiling a timeline. A widely circulated thread claimed that the receipts showed Chrissy's husband transferring funds in questionable ways using burner accounts and aliases. At worst, and unlawful at best. The worst thing was that Chrissy and Jim continued to date throughout some of the dates. Suddenly, all of a sudden, the pain was not just about lost love, but also about loyalty, trust, and power conflicts that had been going on behind closed doors. However, the emails weren't the only startling discovery. They were accompanied by allegedly captured blurry backstage video footage during the wedding reveal for Chrissy. The footage showed Jim storming off stage, although it was shot from a different perspective. Jim shouted as you saw Chrissy's husband standing a little distance away, folding his arms and grinning. In the recording, fans had only heard rage, been made public. But now they could read the body language. The wife wasn't comfortable. He was not nervous. He looked confident, cocky, like a guy who believed he had already won. After that, TikTok went into meltdown mode. Just that video. It was not heartache. In the comments section, people said that this was war. Jim then put out the flames using fuel. He shared the brief message and an image of one of the alleged receipts on Instagram stories. He didn't publish anything explicitly, but I told you all. No long explanation. Avoid ranting. They went out on the internet like explosives after only 3 words. Jim wasn't playing bluffs. That much was clear. He had evidence. If this was only the beginning, fans could only guess what more he could have kept secret. Behind the scenes, there was chaos among the producers, according to insiders. VH1 administered to determine if to hide the movie during emergency meetings or to play into the situation. Some claimed that disclosing this would damage the program and damage Chrissy's reputation. They thus want to keep her and her schemes safe. Others smelled golden gold. According to reports, one insider provided a, "We don't need to script anything anymore. The drama is unfolding on its own," the text message reads. But one reportedly handed a warning by an authority. "If Jim has additional receipts and we broadcast this, things might turn deadly. We are no longer just playing around. Sentiments, they're playing with lives." Meanwhile, Chrissy's quiet became louder. Following receipt of the down, people remarked that she absolutely ceased tweeting for 40. Nothing, no ring photo options. Moral, quiet is powerful. People started to question if she was hurrying to fix the harm that had already the scenes. Did anybody know that her husband had other secrets? Or did she purposefully allow the storm to pass, being aware that supporters will ultimately leave? The internet is still static, however. It travels farther. On Twitter, old recordings of Chrissy and Jim's time on Love and Hip Hop began to surface again, including instances when Jim had charged her of being dishonest or failing to secrets. The old quarrels suddenly took on new meaning. Fans started putting together the leaked receipts, collaborating to produce viral modifications that presented Sissy's husband as a sinister figure who had been ready to take Jim's place. Just stated, one TikTok went viral. She failed to locate him. He is always waiting in the dark. Celebrities also began to remark, which further fueled the flames. Remy Ma said in an enigmatic tweet, "The illusion is often wrecked by receipts." In a remark below a photo, Cardi B said, "This tea is extremely hot." She also included laughing emojis. Post with rumors. Not even 50 Cent could resist, distributing a photo of Jim holding a stack of fake invoices in addition to the statement. Like school debts, Jimmy has been stockpiling them. The screen grab went viral despite the fact that he took it off a few minutes later. However, the real surprise came late that night when an unnamed production assistant emailed a horrifying accusation to a gossip blog's direct messaging. They maintained that it wasn't nearly as horrible as the leaked emails. Jim had videos, they claimed. Videos showing Chrissy's husband in different situations show the receipts seeming benign. "It won't just be Chrissy's marriage in question," the assistant said. "Her whole reputation, and perhaps hers as well, will be at risk if they fall." Because of that one remark, the internet turned into a fight, and fans started speculating about what these kinds of movies will show, including questionable financial transactions, secret encounters, or even proof of betrayal that went beyond personal partnerships. Despite the fact that society was divided at the conclusion of the first of all, this issue was becoming out of control, and it was clear that this was more than just melancholy. The receipts were with Jim, the blogs told the tale. But what about Chrissy's husband? His whole identity was crumbling in front of us. When would Jim decide to disclose it? Or was he keeping on to if he already had email? The morning after the receipts were released, a war zone, and that was the cliffhanger that left everyone breathless. Twitter threads were hundreds of entries long, with comments, and TikTok creators were already acting out like Shakespeare in the neighborhood. Chrissy's husband was in the middle of areas that were burning, and what had begun as a diatribe had evolved into a cultural issue. The internet thought Jim was just starting off, and that he was more than just the injured ex. He was now the guy with receipts.